Hello, hello. I'm your host, Ghost. I'm the host with the most for the next little while. And today we're talking about something that's, well, not controversial, but I'm gay. And today we're talking about what is the absolute worst horror movie of all time. Now, I hate to tell you this, guys, and I know that this may damage my credibility, but I haven't seen every horror movie in the entire world.
Get the fuck out.
I'm sorry.
No, get out.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so unfortunately I haven't seen every horror movie ever. But, you know, I'm working on it. Get back to me in, I don't know, a few hundred years. But I've seen a pretty damn good handful. I'd say I've seen a hell of a lot more than the average person, at least. And I've seen quite a few just plain dog shit ones. And that made me think, though. I've seen a lot of bad horror movies. I mean, a lot of horror movies are bad. But which one is the worst? And what makes it the worst? So me and God, the guy behind the camera, we compiled a short little list. And we'll be talking about some of the definite candidates for worst horror movies of all time. And I'd like to start with Guinea Pig, The Devil Experiment is a 1985 Japanese horror movie, and it's definitely one of my least favorite horror movies I've ever seen. For one, it's boring as all shit. Yeah, so unfortunately, Guinea Pig, The Devil's Experiment is the first in the series of 6 films. There is kind of an unofficial sequel movie, but I'm ignoring that. But it is the first of a 6-film long series. And while I haven't seen the others, I do hear that some of them are in fact better. But talking solely about the first Guinea Pig movie, it's a wildly disappointing watch. Now, I'm sure many of you have watched Wendigoon's disturbing movie iceberg video, if you happen to be on this channel. And, you know, if you're watching it, you'd probably go in expecting that this is a disturbing movie. I mean, it's on the fucking iceberg. So you'd go in probably expecting it to be a rather fucked up movie, yeah? No, I mean, it's technically conceptually fucked up, but the way it's executed is so unbelievably bland, uninteresting, and just shoddy that it's really just a boring, lazy watch. In comparison to so many other movies on that iceberg, like, say, you know, Men Behind the Sun, or Traces of Death, or the August Underground trilogy, it's really just nothing, really. It's a boring mess, and in reality I find it funnier than I do disturbing. Let me tell you why. In the first scene, which definitely set the tone, in the first proper scene after the kidnapping at least, we see the group of men slapping her and beating her. Now, this would be a rather unpleasant scene and all. Unfortunately, however, if you take the footage away, and maybe speed it up about 1.5 speed, to 1.5 speed, doesn't sound like a torture scene. I'll have you do that. See my point? Yeah, it doesn't necessarily sound like a horror movie, does it? Now, as shitty as Guinea Pig is, I don't think I can actually call it the worst horror movie of all time. While I do find it boring and just kinda goofy, its influence on extreme horror and just horror in general is definitely present and makes me have to state that I don't believe that this could be the worst horror movie of all time. I have God here. He's my editor. He's the camera guy. He's in all the videos, even if he's not physically present. And
I'm gonna do a magic trick. Wow. Wow. I finally killed him. Now, this is gonna be a very controversial take, because some people consider this to be one of, if not the best horror movie of all time. And while I do say it's influential, I think it's a boring mess. And that movie is Now, before you all try to kill me, let me prove my point. Here's the movie.
Ellie, look.
Look where?
Behind the bush.
I don't see anything.
The guy who drove by so fast, that one you yelled at.
That's the movie. That's like the first half of the movie. Maybe even the first 3/5 of the movie. Now, you may think, what's the final part of the movie then? Now, the final part of the movie is basically Michael Myers going around killing people, and no, I'm not talking about Shrek, I'm talking about the dude in the mask. And you may think that is somewhat interesting, but no. He goes from one house, kills a person, goes to another house, kills a person, and then the final goal, blah blah blah, generic 80s, technically 70s horror. But, you know, it's the most generic and bland movie I've ever seen, and I don't know if that's because it's the originator of all that stuff. It was definitely influential for the time, but looking back on it now, so boring. I almost fell asleep during this movie, and I don't know if that was because I was sleep deprived, or because this movie is boring as all hell. It's not exactly a fun watch. It feels like it's like 120 minutes. It's like 75. It really is just a snooze fest, which is, I think, one of the worst things a movie could be. Because if you're not enjoying yourself while watching the movie, what the hell are you doing then?
Now, while I don't necessarily see eye to eye with God on that pick, I suppose it is a good example of a lot of people would have different opinions. It's a very contrarian opinion to popular belief, and that's why I thought it was interesting and worth including. I don't deny that it's definitely slow, but I believe that its influence, similarly to Guinea Pig, except even more so, actually keeps it afloat. Though, I believe that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I think that's an interesting one to have. Now, a couple videos ago in my Disturbing Albums video, I briefly went over a tiny bit of the second wave Norwegian black metal scene. And, well, there's a movie based off of it that I think qualifies for this list. Now, really quickly, if you aren't aware, I'll do a very brief recap, though, since I kind of went over it quickly in the last, a couple videos ago. I won't be terribly in-depth or anything. I don't want to bore anyone. Basically, Norway, you know? We got second wave black metal. First wave black metal, we had, like, Bathory and Venom. Second wave, we got Mayhem, Burzum, Dark Throne, Sigh, all those bands. Those bands really helped make black metal as we know it. And basically, those bands got together, you know, they made a little black circle thing, or whatever the hell they call it, where a bunch of black metal bands would, like, hang out in the basement of, Euronymous, the, founding member of, Mayhem's little, record store and shit. And, well, you know, they burned down a lot of churches. One of the original vocalist of Mayhem killed himself. Euronymous was like, I'm gonna snap some pics, make some necklaces out of his skull, you know, cool stuff like that. And, well, the story of the Norwegian second wave black metal scene and the, murder that Varg Vikernes of Burzum, commit, against, Euronymous, has grown to be the most iconic story in the metal scene, period, probably. Its goal was to be hyper anti-mainstream, but funnily enough, it's gotten more mainstream attention than, say, death metal. And that's reflected by the fact that there's a fucking movie made on the second wave black metal scene. Lords of Chaos is overflowing with misinformation. And that's a problem. If you want to see the second wave black metal story told with Euronymous being a nice guy who really, really cared for his friend Dead, watch Dead be some horrible psychopath who kills cats, and just, in general, watch everything unfold with the general skeleton of the story still intact, yet various details being fluffed up for the movie. Yeah, if you want to see that, well, that's what Lords of Chaos is for you. It's a semi-correct telling of the second wave black metal scene that's technically classified as a horror movie. Now, Lords of Chaos's misinformation is its big problem. It's an interesting and entertaining movie, unlike the others, but it just simply doesn't tell the true tale, which is not a good thing. It's harmful to those who want to get into the scene and suddenly they're like, oh, actually, Euronymous was a good guy. Like, go say that on the black metal Reddit and you're fucked. Because it's just plain not true. With Lords of Chaos, it tries depicting a lot of these people as nice guys, except for, like, Varg, who's suddenly totally cold-blooded nuts, when in fact he's really just a goofy-ass motherfucker who killed a guy. In the end, Lords of Chaos's misinformation makes me kind of hate it. Well, I didn't downright hate it after my first watch. My distaste for the film has grown over time, simply because, becoming more immersed in the scene, I've grown to be really quite mad at the misinformation it spreads about the story.
Yo, 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 it's your boy, Jesus H. Christ, from A Little to the Left. Now I'm gonna be talking about my least favorite horror movie, and also it's the worst one. Be My Cat, a film for Anne. This movie sucks. You'd think it'd be like a cool creep flick, but no, it's just boring as hell. You literally just watch this one guy be a little creepy and just walk around for like an hour and a half, and the kills just look like fucking ketchup stains.
Cure my leprosy.
Fuck you. But really, it's just really boring. Because if you know anything about like what the movie is, if you read the description, because obviously you're gonna read the description of a movie called Be My Fucking Cat, but you see this and you think it's gonna be this creepy film. But no, it's just a slogfest of a guy walking around being a little creepy, being mostly stupid as hell, and then you just see like kills that ain't even exciting at all. And the end's neat. It's what I wish would happen at the end of every horror movie, but it's like anticlimactic as hell. And they just talk to each other for like 30, 20 minutes until the movie just cuts. It sucks. It's boring. It's not the worst because it's like awful, or it's the worst because it's boring. That's what makes it awful. It's barely even a movie. You'd have to pay me to watch it again. There's nothing I could do to make me watch it again. It's awful.
So, unlike with Halloween, I actually do have to agree with him. Be My Cat, a Film for Anne's a movie that actually had a lot of potential, and while I don't actually hate the film, ultimately I think there's a lot less redeeming qualities to it. I just don't think it's all that entertaining. Found footage is hard to pull off right, and I think that they were on the right track, but I don't think they quite achieved it. I would also really quickly, before I get into the last personal pick, quickly talk about kind of what I'd consider, I guess, the people's pick. On Letterboxd, if you go to the genre of horror and sort by the lowest average rating, you'd see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Now, personally, I don't really understand how badly this is hated. I watched it a while ago, and I had quite a bit of fun. Well, I don't think they capitalized on the potential they had with a Winnie the fucking Pooh horror movie. I believe that, ultimately, I don't think it was terrible. However, I can quickly read you one review just to give you an idea. This is Chris's review on Letterboxd.com. 80 minutes of pure mind-numbing mental torture. The amount of times my eyes rolled to the back of my head, which doesn't surprise me. Tries too hard to be intimidating, but comes off as plain fucking stupid. Imagine what a little effort would have done. It's giving me late Wrong Turn sequels, backwoods inbred killer vibes, but all in all, not my Winnie the Pooh. I guess a 1.4 Letterboxd rating was enough to warrant a sequel in the works. Fun fact, it's at a 1.1 now, not a 1.4. Alright, for the final film, I actually have both me and God here to talk a little bit. Lucifer Valentine's a real piece of shit, you know that? Now, technically, while everything's alleged, there are a lot of allegations about him just being a total scumbag. And while I might create a video on his stuff and him as a person in the future, right now I don't want to get into it. I'd rather focus on simply his first movie in the Vomit Gore series, Slaughtered Vomit Dolls. The Vomit Gore series, one that I've seen almost every movie in, I'm at the final one, really feels more like just kinky garbage than actual horror. And that's really shitty. It's a poorly edited mess of pretentious garbage that advertises itself as horror so it sells, and doesn't get horribly scrutinized, when in fact it's really just plain kinky, gross garbage. And I really hate it for that. And so does the guy that watched the series with me, God.
This is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, he genuinely believes that it's worse than Cool Cat Saves the Kids.
I do. Because this checks all the boxes of what makes a bad movie. It has no value whatsoever, it's pretentious, and it's boring.
Now, while a lot of people have actually defended it, ultimately, we're not any of those people. Now, you can find videos on YouTube of people defending the hell out of this shit, but I'm sorry if I don't like pretentious artsy porn, but I don't. You can say it's a horror movie all you want, but in the end, watching a bunch of girls, or a girl in the first movie, non-stop puke and occasionally cut to some weird mutilation or something, not really my thing. I know this may come as a shock. Watching people drink their own vomit, not really something that I consider particularly artsy or wonderful. Alright, here we are. We have God, Jesus, who's actually at the right hand of the Father. The Bible gets it wrong. And me. I don't know what I am, but I'm in between the two of them.
You're a little bitch.
Well, Jesus hates me. Anyways, I thank you for your time. I apologize for the constant cuts. I'm gay.